All right, hi everyone. I'm Don. I'm INE's Director of Community. Here at INE, it is our mission to be the world's leading provider of hands-on, role-based technical training, maniacally focused on developing experts in the areas of cybersecurity, networking, cloud, data science, and others. We often say that we are experts at making you an expert. Well, since you're here and registered for today's event, you already saw that we have lots of great content for you being released each of the next 5 days during Cybersecurity Week. So we're going to have things like live webinars like you're attending today, as well as articles and other videos, all great content for you to consume this week. So with that, we officially welcome you to INE Cyber Security Week, and this is day one. But just in case you missed it on the sign-up page at INE.com, here's a quick look at the activities that we have planned for the rest of the week. All right. Hey, Chris, let me know when you can see that slide.
I can see it.
Awesome. So just to let you guys know, it's our intention this week to give you a nice mix of general information about the industry, while also diving into some of the specifics of certain job roles and techniques, all with the overarching theme of answering the most common question that we get: how do I do this for a living? So today we'll be taking a slightly different approach to the news of the day. So instead of what you might think is the obvious thing to cover, and as so many already did, we'll be taking a look at how the latest news like STONKS and Solarwinds and the tax season, but we're not going to cover those common things that you've seen ad nauseum in all the news. We're going to eventually tie that in to how that is a concern for cybersecurity professionals. Now, as you can see on your screen, tomorrow, we're going to release a video by Neil Bridges entitled "A Day in the Life of a Security Team," so you can get a good look at what a team actually does. We'll also be releasing a blog post with INE's very own Lily Clark. Many of you know her in the community as Lil C. She'll be writing about her journey from going from absolutely zero tech in her background to passing the eLearn Security Junior Pen Testing exam. Now, that will also be followed by a live AMA with Lily in the unofficial INE eLearn Security Discord server. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be having the link to that on our website as well as tweeting it out. So definitely go join up that Discord server. Again, it's not official. It's not something that we here at INE run, but they do a fantastic job of answering a bunch of questions about everything that INE and eLearn Security do. And we are active participants in that Discord server. Then on Wednesday, I'm back with an intro into IoT hacking. Also, don't forget that by attending this live webinar today, you have actually been entered into a giveaway to win one of 3 prizes. You'll get additional entries for each of the live webinars that you attend this week. So please be sure not just to attend today, but also be sure to attend on Wednesday as well as Friday. Thursday brings some more great content with the release of a video from the BizTech Blueprint. It's on building skills for a multi-cloud enterprise. So even though that's cloud-based, there's a lot of security aspects that go along with that as well. And that's again with INE's very own Tracy Wallace and Catherine Brown. And we also have a new blog post that's going to be released on INE's blog from Hisomera called Pen Testing 101, Getting In with Social Engineering. So that's really cool. Be sure to check that out. We close things out on Friday with what will hopefully be a great way to wrap this all up with some career advice and how to get into this field with some specifics on pen testing. Now, we'll also have an extended Q&A session on any career topic that you want to talk about. So it's not just ethical hacking or pen testing. It could be on anything that you want. So keep an eye out on that. We might also have a special guest joining us during that Q&A session. So be sure to watch our socials for information on who that might be. Now, to end the week on a high note, at the end of Friday's webinar, that's when we will be announcing the winners of the prizes. So stay tuned for that. We will give a few more details on what we're giving away at the end of this presentation, so be sure to watch all the way through. Now, with that, the whole INE team is thrilled to be able to bring you this entire week of fantastic content. So with that, let's just get right into it. So today, we'll get acquainted with one of our experts who produces content for the INE security topic. Now, also keep in mind that we have a wide variety of topics as well, but here's what we're going to be doing today. Basically, we're going to be taking that different approach to some hot topics of the day. So we're going to take those current events, we're going to talk about them just to give you a little bit of background, but then instead of going over everything that you already have probably heard, we're going to connect them to what cybersecurity professionals have to do and deal with on that daily basis. So with that, hi everyone, I'm Don. Hi, Don. Just in case you don't know who I am, a little bit of my background. I'm the founder of the Ethical Hacker Network, otherwise known as EHNet. It's a free online magazine and community for security professionals. EHNet was acquired by eLearn Security several years ago, and then eLearn Security in turn was acquired by INE. I served as the editor-in-chief of EHNet, as well as headed up the community efforts for eLearn Security. Well, now that we're all part of one big happy family here at INE, my current role as director of community means that I will continue as an evangelist for all cybersecurity careers, but I will also be engaging with a wider IT community in not just cybersec, but also in areas like networking, cloud, and data science. And also, we're going to be doing that in numerous ways, not just from events that we attend and that we sponsor, but also webinars like we're doing today, the socials, Discord communities, and much more. So you can always find a way to reach out to us so that way we can not only help your career, but then you can also give us feedback about what we're doing and how we can help you better. Now, joining me today is Chris Leach. So thanks for joining us today, Chris. Let me pull up your slide. And I know that we can kind of see what you do based on what the screen says, but can you, maybe in your own words, share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Christopher Leach, so I'm a content creator here at INE in the cybersecurity blue team space, as well as the other areas in red team, purple team, and through compliance and development. So my focus areas is around compliance and assurance, obviously, and it's a piece that I hold near and dear to my heart about protecting the guardrails around a company. Most everybody I know is like, oh man, I want to pen test. Well, the reality is while everybody wants to be the hacker in the hoodie and just beat up everything, the unfortunate thing is I'm the kind of guy that says, all right, now you can beat it up, knock yourself out. I put all the guardrails up. Let's see how far you get. And then we just keep evolving the protection of an environment. So while everybody wants to be the hacker in the hoodie, the reality is that after you've broke it, now you're going to have to figure out how to fix it. So that's where I come in. And my strong points around that are very well-defined areas. I hold a master's degree in cybersecurity information assurance. Here in about a year or so, I'll be Dr. Christopher Leach. I'm working on my doctorate in cybersecurity. It's a hard road to go, but it's great. Hold over 40 different industry certificates in various different types of fields. And I'm not accustomed to doing just about anything that's necessary. So lately this year and through COVID and the pandemic, everybody's been moving to cloud. So it's been all about security in the cloud and cloud at home and working.
Excellent.
Aaron, yeah, my doctorate,
go ahead,
Aaron,
please.
to answer your question, Aaron, my doctorate is in cybersecurity information assurance. I'm getting it at Colorado Technical University.
Excellent. And as Chris mentioned, it may be the cool, sexy, slightly dirty thing to want to get into pen testing and the other ethical hacking fields. But the truth of it is, anywhere from 80 to 90%, probably even more, of the entire security industry is actually the defensive side. So with that, the amount of experience that Chris is now bringing to INE, he's a new member with us. We're excited to see what he can offer and a lot of the videos and courses that he's going to be authoring. So welcome to INE, Chris. We're excited to have you.
Thank you. Excited to be here, Don.
So with that, I'm sure many of you are sick about hearing about the next two stories because they've been all over the news, but we picked them for two specific reasons. First is that they actually expanded beyond their normal reach of their respective industries, and they became global discussions in every type of media. But they also have implications for security professionals. So let's get to the first one. So Chris, can you give us a little background on our first topic of the day?
Yeah, STONKS and Robinhood, as I like to call it, the men in tights of Reddit. So it went around the internet and it went like a wildfire. Over 1,000 different Reddit members opened up some stuff and just started using Robinhood's app to purchase a lot of stuff from GameStop and from AMC. And it started to cause a market trend to shift and change so fast that they literally had to shut the Robinhood app down because it was causing too much of an unrest. It went from $10 at one day to $420 per share. So it's very interesting to see that in the world of connected individuals who are so disconnected because we're not around, we're socially distanced, how we can still come together and cause an unrest in an area that's kind of scary. And it's just think about that these applications that are being developed. And there's a previous story before this one went in January where Robinhood had a data leakage. So they shored everything up and things were being exposed and they started going through audits and pieces that were done. And after that, boom, they locked all their doors up, made sure everything was tight and secure, had multiple different agencies come in and do security pieces, and they were able to reopen their applications, go back into the whole stock market game again. So it shook up a lot of things, but in our environment, how these things can cause an unrest, and with your cell phones that you're holding nowadays is more technology than used to put the man on the moon. And you have the availability of information at your fingers. How do we protect that data? How do we protect people that are performing these actions that are legitimate actions? They were legitimate people. They grouped together, formed a united community, and decided to go and just buy up a bunch of stock from GameStop because unfortunately GameStop's market trend was down under $8 per share in the last quarter. So they were on the verge of collapsing. And then all of a sudden everybody started buying them up and using the apps to do that. And it's a scary process for cybersecurity individuals in the defensive market, because how do you protect against this? And that's the thought process, is how do you protect against it?
Right. And we won't get into all the things, like short squeezes and, the financial terms and the reasonings behind that. There's plenty of information out there. And if you want to talk about it privately, hey, I'd be more than happy to. I do a little dabbling in the stock market myself. Love to have that conversation. But for today's purpose, I think one of the things we want to focus on is not just, the purposes behind what they were trying to do with that short squeeze and have the little man or the individual retail stock traders who were part of that's Robinhood's audience, and how they were going against the big institutional investors. But really, the thing we want to focus on today is how they did it. So they did it through a Reddit community called Wall Street Bets. And the amazing thing is that now between hedge funds and institutional buyers who always had the upper hand against the little guy, well, now we have this way of communicating and gathering up all of those with like-minded activities into a community. And they all gathered on Reddit in this Wall Street Bet subreddit. And the amazing power of that community and how they took all those individual investors, and now they were big enough in the millions in order to take on the big guys. So maybe, Chris, you can address a little bit about the power of community and what that can do, not just in this area of STONKS and Robinhood, but just how that can mobilize a huge number of people, and then eventually how that relates to cybersecurity.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So the lead into that is the power of community for our informational purposes. In the United States, we have this very big issue is we're always pitted against each other. Walmart is always going after Target, Target's going after Walmart, that natural elation of it. But the power of community behind it is the like-minded security individuals coming together, using conferences, using open forums like this. Don does these great little live sessions with us, and we can talk to the community and bring you guys together so you can see things that are changing, trends that are trending, things that are happening. So even though we're apart, we are much more together. Now, the caveat behind that is that while we are all here to try to do something good, the bad guys have just as much of a community as well. Those people that are out there in the community space that want to do bad things that are out there will split themselves up and group together. They'll form a like mind, or what we call hive mind mentality, and they will build themselves together to accomplish a specific goal. Now, at the end of the day, everybody here, their common goal is going to be one thing, which is I want to get paid for being so cool at being a hacker in a hoodie, which is great. And the bad guys want to fight you. So it's a constant battle between good and evil. And I've said multiple times that cybersecurity itself literally is the finest edge of a knife. You drift ever so slightly one side or the other, and it can take you down a path to where next thing you know, you could be seeing your good friends in Leavenworth, or you could be on the front page of a news article that says, Christopher Leach just performed a defensive tactic that all of a sudden prevented $2 million worth of damage. Awesome. But the old saying in cybersecurity goes is the loudest applause, the biggest thank yous you get are the days are the quietest days. So how do we deal with that? How do we work with that? And in security, it's all about who you know and what everyone else around you can help you get. And that like-minded community, why INE exists. As you start going through your INE learning paths and you start growing into yourself, mentorship, which Don will have other things about this during this week, mentorship with others that are like you, or people who are ahead of you that look back, or people that you are all together. So you got a bachelor's degree in computer science, there's maybe 10 of you grouped together to form a Discord group or a Slack channel, or you get onto LinkedIn and you grab community channels. So if you really think into IT as a point of you just being you and you're just your little bitty island, the reality is that all IT security people and all security people are intertwined at one way or another. The reality is that we don't want to talk to each other. And that's the change that has to come about this, which is what Wall Street Bets and the GameStop issue came about and did. It exposed a vulnerability in our community, which is Robinhood wasn't able to respond to this fast enough and literally got shut down.
Yeah, and the interesting thing that you brought up, sorry to interrupt. The interesting thing that you brought up is actually there's two things that we may want to talk about briefly here. Well, the first one is that all of these tools that Wall Street Bets used, those are open tools and free for everybody to use. Yeah. So the bad guys can use those same exact things in order to mobilize a community.
Right.
So here's the other thing that we want to keep in mind is that when it comes to security and what you need to do, Chris, and what you teach others to do for organizations in protecting your organization, it's not always the break-in like we think of. It's not always, defending against those, immediate attacks that go directly after your specific organization from a technical aspect, direct attacks. But what we also need to consider is that CIA, and the A being availability. And even though this wasn't, let's say, what most might think of as a cyber attack from Wall Street Bets onto Robinhood, they did affect those security-minded people within Robinhood, because in essence, what they did was a DDoS. It was a distributed denial of service attack because so many people wanted to get in and Robinhood couldn't handle it, not only from a financial aspect, but also from a digital aspect, that it shut them down. So those are things that we may want to consider as well. Chris, if you want to speak to that, that'd be awesome.
And to your point, while it is a distributed denial of service, it's actually a legitimate. It's not as it's a bad person. These are legitimate, real individuals, over 1,000 individuals, legitimately doing these things on purpose. This wasn't a bot farm. This wasn't a zombie net where there's a bunch of different machines that are doing it all randomly. These people all joined together in their machines and did this cohesively with a theme to do these things. In our defensive tactics, we try to stop things from being automated and coming from single IPs. Now, Robinhood wasn't getting a distributed denial of services from illegitimate traffic. It was legitimate traffic that was actually being generated. And the difference is that illegitimate traffic is in guardrails that we put up. We have pen testers that come in and we'll start beating them up. You'll have a talk with Mr. Phil Wiley later this week about being a pen tester. They're all about beating up and exposing holes, but if they're legitimate traffic, legitimate access. These people are legitimately doing something, and all of a sudden they can't handle the load. And similar processes from this, a very, very similar thing is a little over a year and a half ago, Disneyland experienced this in front of their parks. People logging into their wireless, using the public Wi-Fi to generate tickets to be able to go into Star Wars Rise of the Resistance ride. And they were getting legitimately DDoSed from actual users. So as a defensive tactic is, how do we shore up our defenses and keep ourselves prepared to handle loads? How do we be elastic enough? And that's where cloud has been thrusted into us, is we need to be able to expand legitimately.
Yeah, and I love that thought process, because again, we are so conditioned to look for those things that are actual cyber attacks, things that are illegal in nature, and we try and catch those anomalies in our logs, and those people who are trying to attack our organizations, and focus just on those, and then we put remediations into effect for those things that are illegal. But what about things like this, which are not only truly legit, but maybe there are other issues where it's a process issue, where again, it's not something that's from the bad guys, the spooky guys with hoods, with cold pizza and warm beer in their basements, but or Coke if that's your preferred beverage. But that being said, how do we address that as security professionals?
Yeah, so we have to take a look at the traffic itself. There's, you really have to get down to the nitty gritty of how you're going to do an incident response plan. If it is legitimate, how are you going to do these reporting tactics are going to verify that this is actually legitimate traffic, and then make a business time decision. It's not something that can be taken by one single individual. Small companies, yes, I see that. But companies like Robinhood, Disneyland, Disney period, GameStop, AMC, legitimate traffic being generated to their sites. How do they deal with that? And that's all a part of an incident response plan or an IRP, which we have, pieces that we have to start looking to address. Pen testing is all about attacking it. And my perspective in defensive tactics is I've learned all these things from how to hack it. Now, how do I stop it from getting hacked and actually only let authenticated traffic in? So we start looking at the traffic. Is it authentic? Is it true? Is it in nature? Is this actually legitimate traffic? And start reviewing, using our internal resources and pen testers to be able to group together, which brings back the time of community. It's not this red team, blue team mentality. The mentality needs to shift and change, where we are collectively a hive mind. You bring blue people that in blue team, you bring your red teams in, you bring your governance compliance people in, you bring these three teams together, and you have a perfect triangle. And each one of them are responsible for working with the next, and they all depend on each other. And that's the thought process that needs to shift in technology. And it's beginning to shift that way. As these things begin to happen, these exposures to where we are having problems is starting to expose itself. And now we have to address it fast.
And I love the idea of how all the different disciplines of cybersecurity actually come together to deal with this issue that may not be what we naturally think of as being a cybersecurity attack. So we're taking incident response. We're looking, we're doing log management. We're looking to see, what is it? Was it legitimate? Was it illegitimate? But either way, whether it ends up being illegal activity or perfectly legitimate activity, our process is exactly the same for figuring it out. And then once we escalate that and we start doing things like threat hunting, this is a threat to your business. Again, not what you would normally think of as a cybersecurity attack, but it still is a threat. And then therefore, how do we model that? How do we look at the indicators of compromise, those IOCs, and build some kind of repeatable process, so that way when we see this again in the future, we can handle it. So before we move on to the next topic, anything else that you want to give as advice on this particular topic of STONKS?
Yeah, I mean, start looking at your community as a whole. And I see a lot of people's questions are looking for community for pen testers to join. Start looking outside that bubble, because the information is invaluable in cybersecurity and information security, period. It's all about the information that you can get and the information that you can have working with individual teams. So if you don't find a real good pen testing community just because they're hackers in the hoodies and they like to hang out with, pizza, Don said warm root beer in my case, in the lower end of your basement, the reality behind that is to start bringing in different areas, because while you know how to break it, while you know how to break in, while you know how to expose the risks, start thinking mentally. Now that I've done this, how do I fix it from that happening? How do we work out a plan? Who do I need to go to next? And start coming up with that collective mind, the hive mind mentality that each one of us are the cogwheels of security, and we all need to get them to run together. Not just you, not just me, not just Don, not just Phil, not just Neil. We all work together to build an environment to make it as safe as we possibly can. Because the old saying goes is the only system that is 100% safe is the one you never turned on.
And something else just to keep in mind is that, like any industry, it begins to mature. So we joke about, the individual person who's in a hoodie in their basement attacking you, but the reality of today is this is massive, big business. So it's not really that individual person working alone. there's huge organized crime that are behind these attacks. So you are attacking a much larger adversary than you did before. In addition to that, the tools that we use in order to protect our systems also are now starting to come from large organizations and used by every single small, medium to massive corporations globally. And so with that,
Right.
that's probably a nice transition into our next topic, which is SolarWinds, because this again is something that is not only used by pretty much probably 80, 90% of the companies out there, not just the Fortune 500 or 1000, but everything from a small guy to the massive organization. But in addition to that, you also have these organized crime units and nation states that are using these indicators of compromise or these TTPs to use that against them. So maybe you can give us the skinny on SolarWinds, and again, as we put on here, oh no, not again, I don't want to talk about SolarWinds. But again, we're not here to talk about the breach. Maybe you can give us a little bit of the background on SolarWinds.
Yeah, and just to set that precedent, like Don said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you all about, oh my gosh, SolarWinds got hacked and all these people from Orion got beat up. That's every news media outlet out there. Here is the part that's not necessarily being discussed. If the attackers were in your system for 8 months, now you've done the update from SolarWinds, you've gone through your remediation path. Now you have to start looking at, how do we keep this from happening again? How do we protect ourselves to keep this from happening? Or what are they already in? We need to start reviewing indications of compromise. Like you said, advanced persistent threats come through. They'll do things over a long period of time. They have lots and lots of time, lots and lots of money. So we need to start saying, okay, we've shut down the front door. And if you think of your company like a fortress, we've raised the drawbridge, we've got alligators in the moat. All right, now we're back on the inside. But who's here? And I look at the SolarWinds attack like a game of Clue. Who is in? Who killed who in the study with the SolarWinds Orion hammer? Who did it? Now you have to start figuring out, okay, so now that we've identified that, great, and then we're going to move on. We did indications of compromise, we fixed it. Now we fixed the initial problem, which is to raise the drawbridge. Now we need to take a look at everything else and say, how do we get this to no longer be there? You know, this indication let us know that we rely on one company so much that it impacted so many people. And not just a single attack, because there were post attacks after this one. So the initial one was, oh my gosh, we all got hacked, da, 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 da. Okay. After a couple of weeks, there was a second stage and a third stage, and they'll keep finding more stuff. But how do you stop that from happening? Discussions, community consequences, and well as using your own best judgment and your internal resources. You need to go in and start reviewing all of your security policies, all your security tools, start reviewing everything as if this was a brand new deployment, and start reading through these things. Yes, it will take time, considerable amount of time. But if data is king and it's the most valuable asset, would you rather be protected or, well, we updated, so we're okay?
Yeah, and something else that's really good to think about is, as you mentioned, so we did the whole defense in depth thing, and okay, great, we shored up our defenses. So we will be fully prepared to defend ourselves against further attacks coming from either SolarWinds or some similar types of attacks. But if we look at that zero trust model, we no longer, and if you're not doing zero trust, maybe this was a good excuse to start doing it, because once they got in and they compromised a person, a machine, a specific server, a service, or whatever it is, now how long can those APTs just kind of sit there and waiting until you put your guard down internally, or they can start attacking you immediately and then start sending all that data out. So there's a lot that goes along with the SolarWinds attack that's that goes way beyond, okay, here was the attack and we stopped it. We can stop it anytime in the future. But what were those unintended consequences that you may have overlooked on your internal network in order that needs to be addressed as well, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, you need to start thinking about, where these people could have got in, and the human element is the most easiest element to expose. But other than that, if they're able to pivot into other systems, how are you preventing that? How are you stopping them? from getting where they need to get, where they want to get. Even if they're slow going and they're doing network traversal and they're going from one server to a server really, really slow, really, really small, and intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems that are put into place will have in-depth packet analysis, but we're seeing companies and we're seeing large corporations have to make a zero trust model as fast as possible. Now, that's like every new version of everything you've ever had. It's going to have problems with it out the gate. So what do? Do you buy it now and hope for the best? Well, you're placing a lot of hope into something that you don't necessarily know. And I'm one for, yes, the best way to defend yourself is to attack yourself and see what's open. That's great. Now that you've figured out what's open, you need to come up with a plan on how to fix it to keep it from happening and make sure that you've determined that it's not continuing to happen. So ongoing threats with the SolarWinds problem, as we begin to get the rest of the information that coming out of it from the federal government, obviously, and Department of Homeland Security, with their postmortem report, they've only made 3 patches since that update to try to fix some of these problems. But we don't know the long-lasting effect that it's already had yet. And we may not know for another year. And because these advanced persistent threats have time, and they're all about getting it. And if they can steal the data or get in where they need to get in, it's money for them. And that whole big payday for them may be a whole year or 2 years worth of money for them. So they could be motivated by a lot of different ways, but we need to come up with a solution and bring in community and figure out how we're going to get these things finished.
That's a good point. And to flip this totally on its head, obviously this was bad and it affected a ton of people. But now, because it's not just about the breach of the day, so let's get rid of all of that stigma, okay? So everybody out there, you probably know, and it's not really a big secret anymore. Everybody gets attacked. Everybody gets breached at one point or another. So let's just put that on the side now. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, but when and how. So then how do we deal with it? So if we can consider that, we can flip it and turn this into a positive and say, okay, this is affecting so many other people. Again, the power of community says, let me go find another organization that's like mine and see what they did, how they handled it. In addition to that, maybe it wasn't, let's say, a specific vertical where your company is doing the same thing as other companies do, but maybe they have similar technologies, similar, network setups, whatever that may be. Use this as a positive outcome in order to influence what you can do in the future. How do I shore up those defenses? How do I do awareness so that way other people know, hey, if I see something strange, to report it right away. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to be looked down upon. If anything, we want to know all these little things. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, about flipping that script and getting organizations to actually now start presenting you with information as opposed to you only finding them when you go through logs.
Yeah, and to your point, it's to your original statement that you stated. It's not about if, it's about when you get hacked, right? There's a one piece I want to add on to that. It's not about if you get hacked, it's when. But there's one piece of what are you going to do when it happens? How are you going to respond? Okay, you're going to have an incident response plan. Have you tested it? Have you verified that it works? What happens? So information is the number one critical piece, whether it's data for a person or it's data of you. So collectively, it's a dog-eat-dog world in companies and businesses. But as cybersecurity professionals, it's not necessarily dog-eat-dog. We have conventions, we all show up, we're all there for the right places, we're all there for the right purposes. We need to come together and start coming up with ways that we're going to be able to communicate effectively with each other in a very open environment that says, all right, I've got these 30 companies, we're going to have a meeting all together, we're going to work with maybe SolarWinds and grab CrowdStrike and maybe Qualys, bring all these guys in and have just an open forum on these things. And there's tons of open forums that are going on, and how to have a correct way of identifying known threats, legitimate traffic, and be able to identify them properly and see and respond to things in a real-time manner. Now, there's a huge big push for automation for security. Security automation is huge right now for cloud. The problems with that is that you're still looking through logs. You're still going through that. So what do we do? What can we do? Well, the reality is there's almost 400 of us in here. Obviously, we all came here for a purpose, which is we want to have a better understanding of security and come together in a collective way to where we're not judging each other. And right now, if Walmart was to get hacked or Target was to get hacked, the other will spin that in their favor. Instead of collectively coming together in an open forum and having a discussion and trying to say, okay, this is what happened for us. Walmart, Target got hacked. This is what happened at Walmart. So now we're going to work together with our competitors and say, to make a better initiative, we need to come together and say, as a collective group, work towards things, things that are going to be better for the overall community. SolarWinds exposed a lot of problems for a lot of people. I don't know very many companies who don't have some facet of SolarWinds available. Log management completely. Do you want to stare at logs all day? Great. I don't. I want to be able to reply. I want to actually be able to know when indications of compromise have happened. Advanced persistent threats are in, using defense in depth models, using vendor diversification. You put all your eggs in one basket. SolarWinds is one utility. If you had another log management utility, even if it was an OSINT one off the shelf, and it's just something a little simple, could you identify traffic that they're trying to get around? So putting up additional guardrails, while it looks like, or it may be a little bit of an overhead, it has its benefits because now you can reply in turn. So the old stigma is in vulnerability management. If you've got a vulnerability utility and you're scanning for vulnerabilities like SolarWinds does, who's checking the vulnerability tool to verify that it's intent? It's true. We're just supposed to put all eggs in basket and say, okay, the vulnerability management said I've got 5 vulnerabilities and those are 100%. Well, who's checking the vulnerability machine? So
that's a good point. Who's watching the watchers? That's another common phrase. Another interesting one is, hey, I verified to make sure that all my backup systems are in place and they're working. But how many of you actually try and restore the data that was backed up to see if that worked?
When did you test it?
When did you test it? And you have to actually test both, because then when that day comes, you're like, and I was about to say an expletive, so I'll try not to say that, but it really is a point where you can open your eyes and say, okay, this is something that we definitely need to look at. So here's another benefit of SolarWinds, and in fact, all of these ideas or issues that we're bringing up today, is that because they grew outside of their normal industry to become global news that every organization knows about or has to worry about, you can actually use this in your favor. So if you are an individual or a team or what have you, trust me, this is going to have the eyes and ears of the board and definitely the CEO. So this is a good opportunity to first and foremost say, hey, do I have those policies and procedures already created and put into effect that would address something like this? If not, I better get off my you-know-what and get going. Second of all, how can I use this as a way to say, all right, look, we made a risk assessment. We decided somewhere down the line that when we were deciding what our budget was for security, that we were not going to consider this to be a high enough risk in order to put funds or resources towards mitigating that. Well, now this changes the game. So again, this gives you an opportunity to revisit everything, especially your risk assessment equations, to figure out, is there something else we need to do? And again, it's a great way for you to then say, all right, well, what do we do now? And not just from a technical perspective, but also from a budget, organizational, policy and procedure perspective that eventually dictates how you move forward in a positive way. So before we move on to the next one, here's something else that I may want you to address, Chris. Here's a great, again, fantastic opportunity for you now to put into effect in your own organization, purple teaming, because you have these attackers. And then you also now know exactly what you need to defend or where you might be weak. And as you start to ramp up, not just those policies and procedures, but the down and dirty technical aspects of mitigating these, now what you can really do is purple team, have open communication between the red and the blue teams and say, look, this is what I'm doing. Are you seeing it? Hey, this is what we're seeing. Is that you or is that somebody else? How do we fix that? And then you go through that in a circular way to try and make them better. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about the benefits of purple teaming.
Yeah, purple team concepts have been around for quite some time, but we get isolated and siloed into red and blue team, or red and blue teams is a big thing. I'm just a defender. All I do is do network defense, or I do, computer forensics and I defended these things, or I'm doing penetration testing and a hacker in the hoodies are live. And what the methodology behind blue team and red teams do is they bring the cohesiveness in of purple. And what purple does is it takes a lot of policies and procedures and actions with actual deliverables. It says, okay, red team, you're going to attack the purple team. Blue team, you're going to defend. And they're going to take the exports out of that and develop processes and procedures that are going to be able to be tested in real time, as close that can be to an actual attack. You've got legitimate pen testers that are attacking your network, or you're attacking servers or backups or encryption. And you've got blue teams that are doing everything they can as fast as they can to stop them. Now, the purple team comes in and says, we take a risk-based assessment. We've done all these things. We've gone with our red teams. We've gone on with our blue teams. We've gone over all the logs. Here are the steps that we're going to maintain our compliance. And a lot of times people don't like to get into the purple part because it deals with a lot of compliance and allocation and updates and cohesiveness and bringing in people that don't necessarily like to talk. The number one biggest trait that I've seen, even interviewing and as an interviewer from people that are starting in the field, is ineffective ability to communicate with peers, discussions together. Purple team helps to bridge that gap. It takes those guys that are in the red, the hackers in the hoodies, and they take the guys like me that are out in the blue and says, I just want to build my walls and stay behind them as good as possible and be there. But the purple team allows the red team and the blue team to talk and has a single voice from a unified security team and can give it to management. And to your point, we purchase all these things and we've got budgets each and every single year. Now, what the Solarwinds attack allows a company to do is utilize that as a vector to be able to address additional security. Because it's very interesting in the purple teams and red and blue teams, and even as an IT manager in my past, we're given pennies for security in the beginning, prior to something happening. You're getting pennies on the dollar. But the moment something happens or the moment attack has been validated, you're getting $100 bills. Blank. Everything. You can get anything you want now, anything you want. Well, if you let me help, there's multiple times. So it's a super true story. You're given pennies to be able to develop policies, procedures that you may not be able to take. Purple team will be able to help with that. Say, here, look, here are all the data points from our red team. This is what they're seeing. Here's all the data points from our blue team. This is where all the places that we've got stuff going on. Here's where we're missing. And a lot of project managers sit in purple. A lot of IT project managers or IT security people sit in purple. Yes, compliance is boring. Audits suck. Nobody wants to do them. But the reality is you don't know what you don't know. So how can you protect what you don't know? That's an empty spot for blue that red will expose. Well, if red team members don't talk to blue team members because we can't communicate, how do we bridge that gap? And the hope is that purple and teams that are in full compliance for GRC or anything else will allow to bridge that gap, be able to help put companies off the 5 o'clock news. And that's what we want. No 5 o'clock news.
Absolutely. And you make a really good point. And so I'll just add on to this before we get to our public service announcement. Sure. I think it's great that you bring up, you're getting pennies and all of a sudden you're having these $100 bills thrown at you. Well, that's a fantastic short-term solution to something. But if you really want to take a long-term look at this, what you should do as security professionals, whether you're a CISO or you're just a director or some kind of management, don't just take that money and figure, hey, great, we can do all these cool new things now. The long-term perspective is you need to show a return on investment on that. So this is a good opportunity, not just to get money, but to change those policies and procedures to incorporate things like purple teaming. And then you can show clear evidence that, look, we did this from our red team. This is what the blue team saw. This is the outcome that we have. And therefore we are absolutely more secure. And we can show that return on investment from management for the entire organization, because that's what they're going to look at next year. So with that in mind, as everybody can clearly see, the concerns of an InfoSec practitioner can honestly come out of nowhere. And it can end up being your top priority when yesterday you didn't even think it was an issue. So sometimes that can even come from those sensational headlines. But sometimes it even comes with those everyday occurrences or things that we look at as annual events that we have to deal with all the time, which kind of brings us to our next point. And this is our public service announcement. So from the not so shocking news of the day department, well, guess what? Criminals are conniving. They will use anything and any topic to get you to click on those malicious links. So Chris, maybe you could give us some examples of past events that criminals with those tech skills, notice I didn't say hackers, but those criminals with tech skills, what are some of those, times of year that they have hijacked in the past, and what do we need to look for right now?
Well, the unfortunate thing about being in security, it's a 24 hours a day, 7-day-a-week job. There is no day off, really. Hackers and internal hackers that are doing good things are going to help you try to show up as best as possible. Now, criminals of the type of technology criminals, they don't ever stop. Their job is to do this and get there at the utmost time. Now, remembering that key critical times during high purchases or high large financial transactions. Case in point, we're in tax season. IRS doesn't send you an email, they send you a letter in the mail. But I have seen and I have heard many individuals that have fallen victim to getting an IRS call from an IRS agent claiming to be an IRS agent. That's one part of it. Another piece is to Don's conniving part, right? His part about that is very simplistic. And here is the most undeniable proof that we've seen. With a jump of almost 400% in unemployment claims, people are now, as bad actors, are filing unemployment claims as you, even though you're still working. So verify these things are content, make sure these things are actually there. You've got tax season, you've got end of fiscal year, which is coming in the summer. If there's an election year, it's always going to be around election time. Christmas, always around Christmas time. Thanksgiving from like October, mid-October, all the way through end of May is basically what we call, indications of compromise or duck hunting season. It just don't stop. So be cognizant of what you do. Emails from known entities of the federal, state, or federal or government, they don't send you emails. They don't even know your email address, and they could rather not care. They're going to send you a letter in the mail. And if the IRS has something they want to talk to you about face-to-face, they'll send you a letter with a date and time and a telephone number with a PIN number. So how do you stop these things from happening in your public service announcement that we've talked about? Multi-factor or triple factor authentication. Any way that you can validate that the traffic is legit and you have got a second form of authentication is always good, whether it be geo, or it could be a token, it could be any kind of thing. Just sending you a one-time password in the email, doesn't matter. But your entities that are, municipal, federal government, they're not going to send you stuff via email. They don't have time for that. So
exactly. So everybody should always, so everybody should always have at least a small tinfoil hat. But then things like this, and the reason we called it a public service announcement is because, as we all know, awareness of a problem is more than half the battle. If you know to look out for it, then you might do that extra little step of, let me just hover over that link instead of clicking on the link, and let me see on the bottom left-hand side of my screen, where is it actually taking me? Or if you already know, like Chris said, that they're not going to communicate with you in this way, please don't even open it for previewing that email. Just delete it right away. In fact, there's another pro tip. In your email program, you may want to turn off preview. Just say it. So that way it doesn't, a lot of email clients either on the web or local are much better at not generating what that HTML tells it to do, but sometimes they still do. So always be careful. Again, another pro tip, but being aware is the best thing. But speaking of awareness,
pro tip off that, Don. Another way to do it is take a look at the sender. Take a look at the person that's sending you. The IRS doesn't have a Gmail account.
That is so
true. They don't have a Gmail account. It's just because you named it. It's Internal Revenue Service doesn't necessarily mean they're actually getting a Gmail account. So review the Gmail account. And here's another thing that helps us. Remember, knowledge is power, right? So before you just delete that email, flag it as phishing, flag it as spam, because the company that you're getting your email from, whether it be Gmail itself or it be Microsoft or it be any platform, they have algorithms to where their white and black listings to block these guys from coming are needing to be updated. So if you do the due diligence and say, report phishing, report spam, that only improves the way that things aren't coming down the pipe. Not just for you, but remember, there's millions of you that are getting free email.
That's
So
a
if you
fantastic
do
point.
your part and I do my part, that's 2 out of a million,
Because again, I'm sure we have plenty of people who are not specifically in the cybersecurity industry already, and maybe they're joining INE for Cybersecurity Week because they want to get an idea of what this is about. They may not even have thought of that. That's one of those ideas where it's like, oh, that was so simple and obvious. Why didn't even I look at where that email is coming from? And it just makes perfect sense. So again, awareness is a big thing, but also training. Obviously, you'll have to, forgive the plugs. We all work for INE, and that's what we do for a living. But maybe you can tell us a little bit about some of the training that they can take on INE in order to better prepare them, not only for awareness, because I don't know if a lot of people know this yet, but INE did acquire a company that does security awareness for the knowledge worker, and we offer that absolutely free. But we also have a huge number of training paths for a number of different areas. Don't know if you want to address that at all and tell us maybe a little bit about what you have coming down the pipe.
Yeah, check out the starter pass. The more information you have, the more well-informed you are. It's like any athlete will tell you about training for a marathon. You keep training, keep training, keep training. And you're not ever not in training. You're constantly training. I have the most worst part about it is very simplistic, right? I constantly am still training. I've done this for almost 21 years. I'm still training. I won't ever stop. Why? Because they don't stop. Bad guys don't stop. So if you're more well-informed and you're more trained, grab out the penetration student learning path. Take a look at how that works. And if it's something that you find valuable, move on into a full path and get into the full subscription, because there's so much that's coming down the pipe for cloud security, zero trust, new penetration testing attacks and vectors that you'll hear from Philip later this week. I've got stuff in the blue team that are coming down the pipe on how to perform incident response and how to, instead of being reactive, you're now proactive before these things are happening. You're shoring up things. So don't ever think that just, oh yeah, I want to be the hacker in the hoodie. They're a dime a dozen, but real good blue team defense people that have a great understanding of red team and how those things come together. You begin to evolve into the purple.
Oh, exactly.
You won't even realize you're doing it.
And not just to keep up with the bad guys, but also employers are looking to make sure that you're keeping up with your education. So that makes you much more employable, much more valuable, and allows you to make a higher salary. But for those who are new to INE or cybersecurity or even training in general, as Chris mentioned, INE offers an absolutely free way to get kind of a toe in the water to see if not only if this career path is good for you or something that you like, but also, let's say you love cybersecurity, you can actually see if INE is the platform that helps you the most in your career journey. So you can see on your screen now a little bit about the starter pass, which is 100% free. And it gives you access to numerous snippets of all of our course categories at INE, like cybersecurity, networking, cloud, data science, and much more. But it also includes, as he mentioned, a full introductory security learning path called Penetration Testing Student, or as we say, PTS. Now, that PTS course, it's in its entirety completely free with that INE starter pass. And it comes with all the slides, videos. It even comes with unlimited time in our virtual labs. So that way you get hands-on practical practice at this kind of stuff. And it prepares you for eLearn Security's EJPT exam, although that exam voucher is not included with the free starter pass, just letting you know. So head on over to INE.com after this webinar, give it a try. You've got nothing to lose and a life-changing career move to gain. So I want to thank all of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Don. It's a perfect segue to that. You'll begin to find you want more. And as much as the PTS course is such a great little pocket of understanding, you'll see, oh man, I can get through these. Oh, this is so much fun. This is awesome. Remember, in security, if you think of security like a tree, right? There are over 320 plus certificates in the security world, starting at the very bottom, which is basic understanding of cybersecurity, and branches out. There isn't one path. My path is not your path. Your path may not be mine. It's not Don's. It's not Phil. It's not Neil's. All of our paths may have been different. We'll overlap in different areas. But at the same time, there's no right or wrong path for you. If you don't like something, unfortunately, with other industries, if you don't like to be a plumber, but it's your profession as being a plumber. I mean, if you're in Texas right now, I know being a plumber is, I want $500 an hour. I'm a plumber. But in security, if you don't want to do networking anymore and you hate networking and you come to find out after you've gone that path, you really don't like it, you can take the information you learned from one path, and even in the starter path, and take that path to a different vector. So you can take the penetration testing student, understand how penetrations happen, and you can take and pivot that into our other courses and other learning paths to where you become a more well-rounded cybersecurity individual by going into the defensive side or compliance or risk assessment.
Right.
Each vector is a different path.
And that's a really good point you bring up, because now with INE, you have one way of accessing it, and it gives you access to every single thing that INE offers. So you can mix and match everything that you want. So let's say security doesn't work for you. Hey, go to data science or go do something else. But also keep in mind that pre-TS course that comes for free with the starter pass, that is what we recommend to everyone just getting into the industry. In fact, we recommend that to all of our employees as well, which is probably a good reminder to keep an eye out for that AMA and also the blog post from Lily Clark, who came into the company with our customer service or customer success team, and she knew nothing about technology, and how she took just that test and some of the other resources in the INE platform, and she actually passed a penetration testing certification exam. So it's impressive. Keep an eye out for that. But with that, really quick, Chris, just want to thank everybody for joining us. But before we get to the Q&A, a couple little pieces of information for you, especially on those prizes that I promised you we talked about. So as mentioned earlier, by not just registering, but keep in mind you have to attend not only this webinar, but also the other two, you have automatically been entered into a drawing for some fantastic prizes. Now, the top prize is a full year of our premium subscription, which is worth $750. And that comes with access to everything INE offers, all those different subject areas, as well as unlimited cybersecurity lab access, boot camps, and a lot more. So that's going to be the first prize. Second winner will get a $400 voucher for your choice of your eLearn security exam. The third place prize will be a $200 eLearn security exam voucher specifically for that EJPT or that junior pen testing credential. So be sure to attend all the webinars today, Wednesday, Friday to earn extra chances of winning. And keep in mind that we will announce who those winners are live at the end of Friday's live webinar with Philip Wiley. All right, Chris, Now it's on for Q&A. So just to let everybody know, let's do a quick little time check. We have just a few minutes left before the top of the hour. So let's take a couple questions and then we'll go ahead and stop recording. Then after that, if everybody has some more questions, Chris and I are willing to stay a little bit longer. So then we'll attack that. So here's a fantastic one. Now that we're talking about the starter pass, how to get into this. Here's a fantastic first question that we have. So somebody says, on a totally unrelated topic, I'm 12 years old and I'm looking to get into cybersecurity. It's super fascinating. What's the one piece of advice that you would give me? Chris, go for it.
Yeah. Automation is probably a security person's best friend. So I would say, because it is common information, start looking at free Python classes. In our data science courses, I would start definitely there, understanding Python language, because it's object oriented and it's very simple to understand. I've got two boys, both of them program in automation in Python and do robot security, and they're really good at it. My next step for you would definitely start looking at different tracks and paths that you feel are going to be something that you want. Now, remember, there's no wrong way to start. I would definitely start looking at companies like INE as we have more stuff added to the starter pass. Also, there are tons of free resources out there to start researching. Be careful with what you wish for, because the next thing you know, you'll start down our INE path. And the next thing you know, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you've got school in the morning, I'm 12 years old, and you don't want to get in trouble. So focus on what you can do. School has a great nature for you to understand, but if you're looking for things that are going to keep you busy in your mind, data science and the security of the new term that has come out that is being coined, which is called DevSecOps, which is development, security, and operations. Taking the first step into Python as a good language, I would say go there and then start thinking about where you want to go. You want to be the hacker in the hoodie in the basement, or do you want to shore up and be a defender? You want to go into risk assessment, vulnerability, threat hunting. If you want to be a bug bounty hunter for Microsoft, finding bugs and broken stuff, there are tons of ways for you to go, and all of them are lucrative. I started out in networking, and then I pivoted over to digital forensics and defense architecture. I hate networking now, but I can teach it and I can do it. I just don't like it anymore. So good question, but I would definitely say start there.
Excellent. Well, if I were to throw my my 2 bits into there, the piece of advice is that always keep in mind that it is ever changing and ever escalating. Now, there's a lot that branches off from that. In knowing that from the get-go, this career path that you are choosing to go down will be one of lifelong learning. You will always have to keep up. You will always have to learn new things. There's always going to be things that you don't know, especially with the industry itself maturing as it is. It's branching off into almost everything that we do. Every organization now is a technology company. Every organization has to worry about cybersecurity. So there's plenty of opportunities for you to learn. But if you find it to be laborious and you can't, if you are thinking about this in the middle of the night and you're just so excited about it, that's a good indication that this is a career path for you. Because like they say, a person who enjoys their job never works a day in their life because they get up excited about doing it. It's something they would do whether they made money or not. It's the same thing with security. Another piece of advice that I would give you is, again, the benefit of community. Go out there and join either Discord servers. Eventually, when COVID is over and we get to go back to physical events, go to as many events as you want. You can volunteer your time with nonprofit organizations or open source projects. There's a ton of ways to not only get experience without getting a job and also learn about who the people are in the industry, what they do, and how they got to where they did. Take advantage of all of the community, the vast resources of community that are out there, because it will help you tremendously. You are never alone, even if you are in that basement, as Chris said, you're never alone. So anyway, I hope that helped. Let's do one more question before we kill recording and then continue
I want to add on to that, Don, one thing. Also, there's one additional resource. The United States federal government has made this an availability for every single school. Reach out to your school practitioners to find out about a program called Cyber Patriots. It is a free program for the schools to enlist, and you may have the same feeling as a bunch of students just like you at your school. I brought it to both of my boys' middle schools and to my daughter's high school here where I'm at. So I would definitely reach out and see if the Cyber Patriot program is at your school. If it isn't, see if you can get one of your instructors or cohorts that are in there to contact the Department of Homeland Security and see if they can bring the Cyber Patriots program to your school.
Yeah, and even if it's not specifically about security itself, most schools now, in fact, I can't think of one that doesn't, actually has, even though it may be small and definitely understaffed and under budgeted, they will have an IT support team. And with that, they're always looking for help, especially from the students. So they can actually get things from the student's point of view, but they also get some nice free extra help, to be honest about it. But you get some great valuable experience in not only learning the technology, but also working with people who are your clients, as it were, who are the other students, but also how to take on job tasks from a manager. So it's a great learning experience across the board to volunteer your time, either in security or general IT. So here's one for you, and I'll start off and then I'll let you chime in, Chris. It says that this person is quite interested in getting into blue teaming or the defending side of security. Where do you suggest I start to get the basics, strong and get going and advancing that career? Well, as I mentioned earlier, definitely sign up for that free starter pass. You get a ton of free courses, and so you're not spending any of your own money just to kind of put a toe in that water and to see, what is it? Do I like it? Now that PTS, even though it's pen testing student, it's not just about pen testing. There's actually 3 courses that go along with that entire learning path. 2 of them are prerequisite stuff. So the first course of PTS deals with things like the industry. What are some common terms? Basic networking. How do I do binary arithmetic? It's a bunch of foundational information. So it really doesn't have anything specifically to do with cybersecurity, although we eventually tie it all in. The second one has to do with an intro to programming. And Python is included in there, again, with some other languages. but that's a great way to start. Then eventually that third course gets you to the actual process of doing a pen test. So even if you're not necessarily interested in pen testing or the red team side, because it covers the basics, it also covers a little defending as well as pen testing, it gives you a little taste of the blue side, the red side of programming, of the industry. Then what you do is you decide, as Chris mentioned about that tree, branch out to where you want to go. So as far as the INE paths are concerned, I would say the very next best step for you would to be our incident handling and response course, because now that is the very first blue team course that we recommend to our students, and again, also to our own employees. If you do those two, you don't even have to take the certification exams if you if you don't want to. I highly recommend it, but you could just take those two, and that will give you a really good indication as to what each side has to offer. Then you decide, what do I like best? Forget what everybody else is telling me. Forget what's hot and sexy and new and exciting for everybody else. What is it that I like? What is it that I get up every morning and I want to do? What am I thinking about in the middle of the night? What jazzes me that I could really do for the next 30, 40, 50 years? That's how I would approach it. Chris?
Yeah, take the basics. There's no such, like I said with the tree, the root of who you are, getting foundationals and putting in foundations is the best way for you to start. Getting in a good understanding of all things that are relevant to cybersecurity, and that is all things, which is, what is the industry looking like? How things are changing. Like you've heard me say, defense in depth models. There's things called cybersecurity frameworks that gives you a good grasp of everything around you. And then you can start picking your path. Now, there's a lot of huge issue right around is that, well, I want a mentor that's going to tell me where to go. Well, that's great. But if I tell you where to go, you may not like the end result. So the reality is that as you go through the first couple of paths in our training courses, you'll find yourself. You'll begin to find out what it interests you, and there may be something out there that you may find is the most interesting about what you do. But there are internships, free internships, and there are not free internships, those that are paid for, that you can get into a day in the life of, which you'll hear Neil as a security person talk about, and then go from there. So I would definitely urge you to start looking at the root. Cybersecurity fundamentals is probably the number one thing that I would definitely look at. Data science fundamentals, like you heard me say earlier, Python is a great language to start with. There's so much still running on it. And then from there, where you go, it's literally the sky's the limit. And if you, like I said, if you go one route and you don't like that route, you're not going to be pivoted and stuck to that route. You can come back and go to a different side, but that's up to you. But that's the way technology and the way IT and IT security has to function, is that we're always constantly learning and constantly evolving. Don't think that this is going to be a job like working at a punch press where after you've made this mold, you're just going to keep doing the same thing every single day. Hackers don't come that way. They're going to come thousands of different ways. This is an ever-evolving job. You are a lifelong learner. You're a lifelong passionate person about what you do. If this is just a 9-to-5 job for you, maybe you want to look at something more into auditing trails and information security management instead of actually doing the blood work.
No, that's fantastic. And I think I'll leave that at that, Chris, as though you determine what your own path is. And if you want to pivot at any time, it's totally up to you. There's that comment or that phrase, bringing it back to STONKS, whereas YOLO, you only live once. This is your life. You decide. You make yourself live a positive life, a happy life. And part of that is because most of your life is taken up by employment. You better do what you like and what makes you happy. And if you do it well, you can actually make a pretty lucrative living in cybersecurity. But even if it's not cybersecurity, if there's something that you decide that it psychs you more in life, I always recommend go do it. Nobody's holding you back. Nobody's holding your feet to the fire. You choose your own path. So with that, please stick around after I do this little quote closing to put a little bit of a bow on this presentation. Stay afterwards for the Q&A, but just for now, so we can end this video recording, I want to thank Chris. I want to thank everybody for attending. I think it's going to be a fantastic week. Again, go over to INE.com, take a look at the Cybersecurity Week landing page and see everything that we have going on this week. And if there's anything that you can do, please reach out to us in the multitude of ways that you can. We're always here listening. We're always here to help. And with that, we thank you for attending today, and we will see you at the events starting again tomorrow and going through the end of the week. So until next time, happy hacking.